Seeing me holding my newborn son in a hospital hallway, wearing the same hoodie I had worn through 3 overnight shifts and 2 days of discharge paperwork, my grandfather frowned. Wasn't $250,000 a month enough? I honestly thought the exhaustion had finally broken something in my head. "What the money?" he said carefully. "I've been sending it since your wedding. Every first of the month. I wanted you comfortable. I wanted your family protected." My son, Owen, was asleep against my chest. Wrapped in a hospital blanket I'd been afraid we would somehow be charged extra for. My eyes burned from lack of sleep. My hands were cracked from warehouse work I had picked up at night because Vanessa told me our accounts were too tight for the hospital payment plan. I looked at my grandfather, Arthur Mercer, and felt shame rise before confusion did, because for months I had believed the problem was me, that I was failing as a husband, as a father, as a man. "Grandpa," I said, and my voice came out rough. I never saw a single dollar. The color drained from his face. He didn't yell. He didn't ask again. He just pulled out his phone, pressed one contact, and said, "Get me Patricia, now." That was when my wife walked in. "My name is Ethan Mercer. I'm 31 years old." And until the morning my grandfather asked that question, I thought I understood the shape of my own life. I was raised by Arthur Mercer, my father's father, after my parents died in a highway accident outside Charleston when I was 10. Grandpa never talked much about grief. He treated it like weather, something you endured, cleaned up after, and never made the center of the room. But he gave me a home in Savannah, a bedroom overlooking the live oaks, and a standard for what a man was supposed to be: steady, useful, quiet when things hurt. He was old money in the way that never needed to announce itself. Same watch for 40 years, same barber, same downtown office where he ran Mercer Holdings, a private investment firm that made other rich men lower their voices when they said his name. I met Vanessa Hale at a museum benefit 3 years before Owen was born. She was elegant, funny, and sharp in a way that made people feel chosen when she looked at them. She remembered small details, how I took my coffee, the name of my first dog, the exact tie Grandpa had worn the night they met. I thought that meant she cared. Grandpa liked her. That mattered to me more than I admitted. He trusted her because I loved her, and I trusted her because he approved of her. Looking back, Vanessa didn't force her way into my life. She studied the locks, then she smiled while I handed her the keys. The warning signs were there. I just had a very disciplined way of explaining them away. The joint account was Vanessa's idea. She said it would make us feel more like a team, and I wanted that. Then she suggested routing my paycheck there, because she was better at organizing cash flow. She had spreadsheets, passwords, folders, color-coded tabs. I had a job, a tired brain, and a wife who seemed completely confident, so I let her handle it. At first, it looked responsible, then it started to feel narrow. Grocery money got tighter. Gas became something I had to think about before driving across town. If I wanted to buy new work boots, Vanessa would sigh and say, "Can it wait until next month?" But somehow, her life never seemed to wait. A new coat appeared, then designer sunglasses, then spa appointments. She called maintenance. Her mother, Marlene, started coming over with fresh nails, expensive perfume, and opinions about everything I was doing wrong as a husband. I asked about the spending once. Vanessa kissed my cheek and said she had been doing well with a side investment account. "You focus on providing," she told me. "I'll focus on keeping us stable." That sounded like marriage to me. When she got pregnant, the pressure doubled. Medical bills, nursery costs, insurance gaps, all of it became proof that I needed to work harder. By the 6th month, I had picked up overnight warehouse shifts twice a week after my regular job. I unloaded trucks under fluorescent lights until 3 in the morning, came home, showered, and left again before sunrise. Vanessa called it admirable. Marlene called it what real men did. I believed them, because the alternative was admitting something in my own house did not make sense. The worst part is how normal it became. I did math at gas pumps. I skipped lunches. I wore the same hoodie until the cuffs frayed. I told Grandpa we were busy when really, I couldn't afford to drive out to his place and pretend everything was fine. Vanessa never looked worried. That should have scared me, but I was too busy trying not to fail. I didn't know then that every month, $250,000 was landing in an account with her name on it. I was bleeding, quietly, and she had convinced me that was called being a provider. The door opened before Grandpa could finish the call. Vanessa walked in first, followed by Marlene. They were laughing about something, the easy kind of laugh people have when their day has gone exactly the way they expected. Vanessa had her hair done. Marlene had 3 shopping bags looped over one arm. Glossy paper, boutique tissue, gold lettering. Vanessa carried 2 more. I was standing there in a hoodie with formula on the sleeve, holding our newborn son and wondering how I was going to cover the next hospital payment. The laughing stopped when they saw Grandpa's face. "Arthur," Vanessa said carefully, "I didn't know you were coming by." Grandpa didn't look at the bags. He looked at her. "Where has my grandson's money gone?" The room went quiet in a way I felt in my teeth. Vanessa blinked once. "What money don't?" Grandpa said. It was one word, but it landed harder than shouting. He stepped closer, still holding his phone. "Every payment I made went into a household account established after the wedding. Your name was listed as manager. Ethan was never given independent access. Do you want to try that answer again?" Vanessa's mouth opened, then closed. I looked at her, really looked at her. The coat, the earrings, the calm face she wore when she told me we couldn't afford the NICU upgrade. The same face that had watched me leave for warehouse shifts, in boots with split soles. "How much?" I asked Grandpa. His eyes moved to mine, and I saw something there that hurt worse than anger. $250,000 a month, he said. For almost 3 years. I did the math because my brain needed somewhere to go. That's more than $8 million. The number seemed too large to belong in the same room as my son's hospital blanket. Vanessa finally spoke. "It wasn't that simple." "No," I said. My voice was low, almost flat. "It was exactly that simple. I worked nights. I skipped meals. I told myself I was failing Owen before he was even born. And you had $8 million. Marlene stepped forward, chin lifted. Vanessa was maintaining a standard this family required. "You don't understand what women are judged for in these circles." Grandpa turned his head slowly. "Your daughter robbed her husband while he worked nights to pay for his own child's hospital bill." Vanessa's face changed then. The softness left. "You think I didn't earn it," she said. "Do you know what it takes to keep us in the right rooms? To keep your name useful, Ethan would have wasted it feeling guilty." There it was. Not panic, not remorse, calculation. Grandpa looked at me. "Pack what you need," he said. "You and Owen are coming home with me tonight. Patricia will handle the rest." Vanessa reached for my arm. "Ethan, don't be stupid." For the first time in 3 years. I moved away from her before she touched me. We were in Grandpa's house in Savannah before midnight. My old room looked almost exactly the way I had left it when I got married. Same oak dresser, same framed photo of me at 14 holding a fish I had absolutely lied about catching by myself. Same window, facing the magnolia tree behind the house. I sat on the edge of the bed, with Owen asleep against my chest, and felt the kind of exhaustion that does not come from lack of sleep alone. It comes from realizing you have been carrying a weight someone else packed for you. The next morning, Grandpa introduced me to Patricia Mercer. Patricia was 58, silver-haired, and built like a closing argument. She had been Grandpa's lead attorney for years and spoke with the clean efficiency of someone who considered comfort useful, only after facts had been secured. She sat across from me at the dining room table, with a folder thick enough to make the wood creak. "Tell me everything," she said. "Start at the beginning. Do not protect anyone." So I talked. I told her about the joint account, the passwords Vanessa said would confuse me, the grocery limits, the side investment account she never showed me, the warehouse shifts, the hospital bills, the way Marlene praised me for suffering, like suffering was a masculine virtue instead of a warning sign. Patricia took notes without changing expression. When I finished, she opened the folder. "Good," she said. "Now let me tell you what we already have." There were 3 years of wire transfers, every first of the month, time-stamped and clean, from Grandpa's account into the household account Vanessa managed, within 72 hours of each deposit. Large pieces were moved into a private account in Vanessa's name at a Delaware bank. Patricia turned the page. There is also an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. Approximately $1.4 million moved over 18 months. My hand tightened around Owen's blanket. She kept going. Credit card statements, luxury hotels, Atlanta jewelers, spa memberships, a weekend in Palm Beach. Marlene Hale listed as an authorized user on one of Vanessa's private cards. Marlene had spent more in 1 month than I had made unloading trucks all winter. Then Patricia slid one sheet across the table. This is the part that removes ambiguity. It was a transcript from Marlene's kitchen smart speaker, pulled from a cloud backup Arthur's investigator had lawfully obtained through the account holder's records. Vanessa's voice, then Marlene's, then Vanessa again. "He'll never ask. Men like Ethan would rather bleed quietly than admit they can't provide. Arthur trusts me, and Ethan always defends me. I read it twice. Something cold moved through me. Not rage. Rage would have been cleaner. This was recognition. Patricia waited. Keep going, I said. She explained the plan: civil fraud, financial abuse, conversion, civil theft, emergency custody protections, a separate referral for the offshore transfers. At 9 the next morning, Vanessa would be served. At the same time, Patricia's office would notify the investors behind Vanessa's new wealth advisory firm. She closed a $3.4 million capital commitment last week, Patricia said. Those people deserve to know what kind of person they funded. That night, Vanessa called 13 times. I watched her name light up my phone, while Owen slept beside me in a bassinet that Grandpa had ordered before we even came home. For 3 years, I had answered every call, explained every tone, absorbed every accusation. That night, I let it ring. At 9:02 the next morning, Patricia sent me one word: served. I was sitting in Grandpa's kitchen, with Owen asleep in the crook of my arm and a cup of coffee I had forgotten to drink. The house was quiet, except for the old refrigerator humming, and Grandpa speaking in low tones from his study. For a moment, nothing happened. That was the strangest part. You imagine justice arriving like thunder. In real life, it can start as a text message on a quiet morning while your newborn hiccups in his sleep. At 9:17, Vanessa called. I watched her name appear on my screen. My thumb moved out of habit before I stopped it. That was how deep she had wired herself into my reflexes. For 3 years, when Vanessa called, I answered. If she was upset, I fixed it. If she was cold, I apologized. If she was angry, I searched myself for what I had done wrong. This time, I placed the phone face down on the table. At 9:31, Marlene called. At 9:44, Vanessa called again. At 10:15, Patricia texted. Lead investor is out, both tranches withdrawn, $3.4 million gone. I read it 3 times, not because I felt joy exactly, but because my brain needed to understand that consequences could happen to someone other than me. Vanessa's wealth advisory firm had been her masterpiece. That was what she called it, a boutique financial lifestyle office for high net worth families navigating legacy transitions. I had never understood what half of that meant, but I had stood beside her at dinners while she described herself as a bridge between old money and modern strategy. I didn't know I was the bridge, or more accurately, Grandpa was, and I was the rope she walked across. At 10:52, a financial journalist named David Park called Grandpa's office. He wrote for the Atlanta Business Chronicle and had covered private capital in the Southeast for 15 years. Patricia had sent the press release to 3 financial wires, timed with the service packet because Vanessa's investor deck apparently referenced Mercer Family Trust access in language Patricia described as creatively suicidal. Grandpa referred David to Patricia. By 11:20, Patricia was already on a second call with the Associated Press. At 11:58, Vanessa called again. This time, she left a voicemail. Her voice was different. Not apologetic, not yet. She was still trying authority first. Ethan, you need to call me immediately. You have no idea what your grandfather is doing. This is not just about us anymore. You are putting my company, my employees, and our future at risk because you're hurt and embarrassed. I played it once. Then I deleted nothing. Patricia had told me to preserve everything. The rest of that day unfolded in timestamps. 12:24, Vanessa's attorney contacted Patricia. 1:06, Patricia sent back 11 attachments. 1:40, Marlene left a voicemail loud enough that I could hear her screaming before I brought the phone to my ear. 2:13, another investor froze a pending advisory agreement. 3:02, David Park requested comment from Vanessa's office. 4:45, Patricia emailed me a draft of our public statement. It was 3 sentences long and somehow sharper than a knife. I did not speak to Vanessa once. That silence felt strange at first, like standing on a floor I did not trust yet. But by evening, when Owen opened his eyes and stared at me with that unfocused, newborn seriousness, I realized something. For years, Vanessa had made every crisis pass through her. Now the crisis was hers. And for the first time in my marriage, I was not rushing to save her from it. Vanessa's first mistake was stealing the money. Her second was assuming she could still control the story after the documents started moving faster than her charm. For the next 2 weeks, she tried every version of herself on me through voicemails. Vanessa wounded, Vanessa furious, Vanessa reasonable, Vanessa disappointed in my lack of leadership, Vanessa reminding me that a real father did not destroy his child's mother in public. Every message had a different costume, but the same body underneath it. come back under control. I didn't answer. Patricia did, through filings. Then Vanessa made the mistake that changed the temperature of everything. She attended a charity gala for a children's hospital foundation downtown. It was the kind of event she loved: black dresses, silent auction tables, champagne glasses, photographers near the step and repeat banner. Half the room had either invested with her, donated with her, or wanted to be seen standing close enough to someone who had. There were nearly 200 people there. At some point between dinner and the keynote speaker, Vanessa stood up. I wasn't there, obviously, but by the next morning, I had heard the story from 8 different people, and by lunch, Patricia had 3 written statements. Vanessa told the room that I had become unstable after Owen's birth, that I had taken our son from her without cause, that my grandfather was manipulating me because he had never approved of a woman with ambition. She said I was punishing her because I felt emasculated by her success. She said she feared what I might do next. It was a smart lie. That was the worst part. She knew exactly which words would make people pause around a man. Unstable, controlling, punishing, emasculated. She dressed herself as the reasonable wife, trapped between a fragile husband and a powerful old man. But Vanessa had chosen the wrong room. 4 of Grandpa's longtime business partners were there. So was a retired judge who had played golf with him for 30 years. So was the wife of a partner at Patricia's former firm. And seated 2 tables from Vanessa was Constance Beaumont, 81 years old, pearls at her throat, silver hair set like armor, and a memory sharp enough to draw blood. Constance had known my grandfather since before I was born. At 7:18 the next morning, she left me a voicemail. "Ethan, this is Constance Beaumont. I heard what your wife said last night. I also watched you grow up, and I know the difference between a dangerous man and a humiliated liar trying to survive discovery. Tell Patricia to call me. I have a long memory and a large address book, and I am in the mood to use both. I played it for Grandpa." He closed his eyes for 1 second. Then he said, "Good Lord." Patricia had a different reaction. She smiled, not warmly, strategically. "Constance," I asked. She has chaired 3 foundation boards, buried 2 husbands, outlived 6 scandals, and knows every serious donor between Savannah and Atlanta. Patricia said, "Vanessa just committed defamation in front of a woman who treats reputation like live ammunition." By that afternoon, the filing was amended. Defamation, false light, malicious interference. David Park, the Business Chronicle reporter, had already been building 1 article. After the gala, it became a series. Vanessa tried to spin it as a misunderstanding. Her attorney sent a statement about a private family matter, distorted by grief and postpartum stress. Patricia sent back the transcript, the wire records, and 3 sworn witness statements from the gala. That was when Vanessa stopped leaving angry voicemails. For almost 24 hours, she went completely silent. I remember noticing because the quiet did not feel peaceful. It felt like the moment after glass cracks, before the whole pane falls. The hearing for the emergency protective order was 17 days after Owen was born. The courtroom was smaller than I expected, wood-paneled, quiet, efficient in the way government rooms are efficient, as if they have learned to process human disaster without reacting to it. Vanessa arrived with her attorney, Gerald Hastings, a polished man in a navy suit who looked like he had already read enough of the file to regret accepting the retainer. Marlene sat behind them with a scarf tied at her throat and an expression arranged halfway between grief and outrage. Vanessa did not look at me. I was grateful for that. Patricia sat beside me with 3 binders, 1 legal pad, and the calm of a woman who had brought a loaded cannon to a knife fight. Judge Diane Okafor presided. She had been on the Chatham County bench for 11 years. And Patricia had told me she had very little patience for financial abuse cases where the defendant confused boldness with strategy. Patricia began with Exhibit A, wire transfers. Every first of the month, $250,000 from Arthur Mercer to the household account Vanessa managed. Exhibit B was the account agreement showing Vanessa as administrator and me, with limited visibility. Exhibit C showed the withdrawals. Within 72 hours of almost every deposit, the money had been broken into pieces and moved, some to Vanessa's private Delaware account, some to investment vehicles I had never heard of, some to cards tied to Marlene. Exhibit D was the hospital billing record. Exhibit E was my warehouse employment record. That one hurt more than I expected. Seeing my overnight shifts printed on court paper made them feel less like private shame and more like evidence. Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, midnight to 4:00 a.m., unloading trucks while my wife sat on millions. Patricia did not make a speech about it. She didn't have to. Exhibit F was Marlene's authorized user card. Exhibit G was the Palm Beach hotel bill. Exhibit H was the Atlanta jeweler. Exhibit Y was the Cayman account documentation, already flagged by a federal financial crimes investigator named Agent Thomas Riley. Then came Exhibit J, the transcript. Patricia read only the necessary lines. He'll never ask. Men like Ethan would rather bleed quietly than admit they can't provide. The courtroom went still. I kept my eyes on the table because I did not trust my face. Gerald Hastings objected twice during Patricia's presentation. Judge Okafor overruled him both times before he had finished standing. When it was his turn, Gerald made the argument I think he had been paid to make. He talked about marital finances, shared lifestyle, complex family wealth, the ambiguity of gifts made to a household, the stress of new parenthood, the danger of turning domestic misunderstandings into public accusations. It was coherent. It was also useless. Judge Okafor looked down at the transcript, then at the wire records, then at Vanessa. Counsel, she said, where exactly is the ambiguity in a spouse diverting funds while the other spouse is working overnight shifts to pay medical bills? Gerald paused for half a second too long. That was the answer. The emergency order was granted. Temporary custody protections were granted. Vanessa was restricted from contacting me directly. Any visitation with Owen would be supervised pending further review. Judge Okafor also noted, on the record, the calculated and sustained nature of the financial control evidenced here. Patricia told me later that judges rarely say more than they have to. This one had wanted to. The Business Chronicle piece ran 2 days later. The headline was brutal because it was factual. The other account, how a Savannah wealth advisor redirected millions in family funds while her husband worked nights. David Park's reporting was careful, sourced, and specific. He named the Delaware account. He referenced the Cayman account without overstepping the federal investigation. He quoted 2 investors who had frozen ties with Vanessa's firm and one who had fully withdrawn. By Friday morning, the Associated Press had picked it up. By Friday afternoon, it was everywhere that mattered to Vanessa. Financial newsletters, regional business sites, a philanthropy watchdog blog, a donor network bulletin she had spent years trying to impress. Her firm had 11 employees. By Monday, 7 had resigned. The lead investor not only withdrew the $3.4 million commitment, but filed his own civil complaint, claiming material misrepresentation in Vanessa's fundraising documents. 2 advisory clients requested forensic reviews. One board removed her name from an upcoming luncheon so quickly, the old event page still showed a broken link where her photo had been. Marlene disappeared from social media. Vanessa's attorney stopped using words like misunderstanding. The last update Patricia gave me that week was simple. Her company is collapsing, she said, and discovery has not even started. I thought that would make me feel victorious. Instead, I went upstairs, picked up my son, and sat with him in the rocking chair until he fell asleep. For the first time, I understood that winning did not always feel like triumph. Sometimes it felt like finally being believed. Marlene called me twice after the Associated Press picked up the story. The first time, I let it go to voicemail. Her message was nearly 4 minutes long and moved through every emotional climate she had available. Rage first, then pleading, then a strange, breathless kind of moral disappointment. As if I had failed an exam she had written for me in secret. She said I was humiliating Vanessa. She said I was destroying Owen's mother. She said families handled things privately. That last part almost made me laugh, because apparently privately meant while she was buying jewelry on a card funded by money meant for my household. The second call came the next afternoon. I answered it. Not because I owed her anything. I just wanted to know whether she would apologize or perform injury. She performed injury. Ethan, she said, voice shaking, you need to stop this before there is nothing left to save. There was nothing left the moment I found out. That is cruel. No, I said. Cruel was watching me work nights while you swiped that card. She inhaled sharply. Vanessa was trying to build a life for your family. She was under pressure. You will never understand. Women in those circles are judged for everything. Clothes, appearances, relationships. She did what she thought she had to do. With my grandfather's money. With family money. That was when something in me went completely still. You were on her card. Marlene, I said, the one funded by the money that was supposed to pay my son's hospital bill. Silence. For 3 years. I had mistaken silence for strength. That day, I learned it could also be a locked door. Marlene tried again. Softer. You are making Owen pay for adult mistakes. No, I said, I'm making sure he does not grow up watching his father apologize for being robbed. She made a small sound then, offended and wounded and cornered. You used to be such a good man. I looked across Grandpa's kitchen at Owen asleep in his bassinet, one tiny fist resting beside his face. I still am. I said. I'm just not useful to you anymore. She hung up. I stood there for a minute with the phone in my hand, waiting for the guilt to arrive. It didn't, only quiet. And for once, the quiet belonged to me. 3 months after the hearing, I was sitting on Grandpa's back porch, with Owen asleep against my chest and coffee going cold on the railing beside me. Savannah was doing what Savannah does in the morning birds in the live oaks, sprinklers ticking somewhere down the block, sunlight turning the street gold before the heat arrived and made everything heavy. Grandpa came outside with his own coffee and sat in the chair beside mine. For a while, neither of us said anything. That was one of the things I had always liked about him. He never treated silence like a problem that needed fixing. Then he looked at Owen. I need to tell you something, he said. I turned my head. I should have structured the money differently from the beginning. A direct account in your name only. Full access, full statements. No household account, no manager, no assumptions. Grandpa let me finish, so I did. His eyes stayed on the yard. I trusted Vanessa because you loved her. I used your judgment as a substitute for my own. Then I told myself the money was for your marriage, not just for you. I told myself joint finances were normal. I told myself asking too many questions would look like interference. He paused, jaw tight. They were excuses. I looked down at Owen's small hand, curled against my shirt. I didn't know either, I said. I know. His voice was quieter now. That is what made it work. She counted on both of us not looking. Me, because I trusted you. You, because you trusted her. The sentence settled between us. Not cruel, just true. For months, I had replayed everything, looking for the exact moment I should have seen it. The first time Vanessa changed a password. The first time I apologized for needing gas money. The first time Marlene praised me for working myself into the ground. She knew I wouldn't ask, I said. Grandpa nodded. She knew you would rather suffer than admit your wife might be lying to you. That one hit hard, because it was true. Vanessa had not only stolen money, she had stolen using the exact parts of me I was proudest of: loyalty, discipline, restraint, the belief that a man should carry what he agrees to carry. Patricia called it financial abuse. I called it something uglier in my own head. Being studied. Grandpa cleared his throat. I am sorry, Ethan, for the warehouse shifts, for the hospital bills, for every time you thought you were failing your son when you were the only one actually protecting him. My throat tightened, but I kept my eyes on the yard. I should have come to you. You were ashamed. I was. I know, he said. That shame was not yours, but I understand why you carried it. We sat there until Owen stirred. Grandpa reached over and touched one tiny foot with the careful seriousness of a man handling glass. Patricia says the civil recovery is strong, he said. I nodded. She told me, the Cayman account is frozen. The federal piece will be slow, but it is moving, and Vanessa wants to settle before discovery. I looked at him. Grandpa almost smiled. Patricia said no. For the first time that morning, I laughed, not because anything was funny, because for once, someone else was going to have to answer every question. 6 months after Patricia slid that transcript across Grandpa's dining room table, I signed a lease on a small house 3 blocks from his. It had 3 bedrooms, a narrow front porch, a fenced yard, and a kitchen window over the sink that caught the morning light. It was not impressive in the way Vanessa would have cared about. No sweeping staircase, no marble island, no room designed to photograph well for people who needed strangers to believe something about them. It was quiet. That mattered more. Owen was 6 months old by then. He had serious gray eyes like Grandpa and a habit of staring at people as if he was deciding whether they had made a reasonable argument. Grandpa said that came from the Mercer side. I told him Owen also screamed if his bottle was 2 minutes late, so he probably should not claim too much dignity yet. I went back to work part-time at a logistics consulting firm owned by an old friend of Grandpa's, though I made it very clear I did not want charity. The man laughed and said, good, because I need someone who understands warehouses and does not panic around spreadsheets. So I started rebuilding, slowly, on my own terms. The civil case was still moving. Patricia sent updates when there were updates and did not when there weren't, which I appreciated more than she knew. The Cayman account remained frozen. The Delaware records had opened up more threads. Agent Riley's federal investigation moved at the pace Patricia described as slow, expensive, and unpleasant for the person being investigated. Vanessa's company had formally collapsed by then. Her lead investor's lawsuit was still active. 2 former clients had joined separate complaints. Discovery had become the thing her attorney kept trying to delay, and Patricia kept trying to accelerate. Marlene had stopped calling. I did not miss her. Vanessa requested supervised visitation with Owen. Patricia responded with conditions professional supervisor. No direct contact with me. No discussion of litigation. No recording devices. No social media posts. And compliance with all financial disclosures. Patricia called them reasonable boundaries. I called them the first honest terms Vanessa had ever been offered. The last time I heard Vanessa's voice directly was a voicemail she left 4 months after the hearing. "Ethan," she said, soft in that careful way I used to mistake for tenderness. "I know mistakes were made. I know things got complicated. But I always loved you. Everything I did was for the life I thought we deserved. I hope one day you can stop letting your grandfather and that lawyer fill your head with poison and remember who we were. For Owen's sake, we need peace. It was beautifully built. That was the disturbing part. Every sentence had a job. Mistakes were made, so no one had to make them. Things got complicated, so theft could become fog. The life we deserved, so greed could wear a wedding ring. For Owen's sake, so my son could be used as a handle to pull me back. I saved the voicemail, not because I needed it. Because one day, Owen may ask who his mother was before court orders and supervised visits and carefully worded updates. I will not teach him to hate her. That is not my job. But I will not hand him a fairy tale either. He deserves the truth, clean enough to hold. I do not think about Vanessa every day anymore. Some weeks, I barely think about her at all. That felt impossible at first. She had taken up so much space in my mind that her absence had an echo. I kept waiting for the next accusation, the next correction, the next small reminder that I was not doing enough. Then one morning, I realized I had made coffee, packed Owen's bag, answered 3 work emails, and gone almost 4 hours without wondering what Vanessa would think. It felt like getting a room back in my own house. I still think about the man I was during those years. The man unloading trucks at 3 in the morning. The man counting gas money. The man apologizing for being tired. For a while, I was angry at him. I wanted him to be smarter, harder, less trusting. I am kinder to him now. He was not weak. He was loyal to someone who treated loyalty like an unlocked door. Vanessa said in that kitchen recording that I would always defend her. She was right for 3 years. I explained her, protected her, made myself smaller so our life could look whole from the outside. But the thing about always is that it only takes once to make it a lie. And when that once finally came, I had my son in my arms, my grandfather with a phone, and a lawyer who ate lawsuits for breakfast. That was enough.